Greetings, Autobots, and welcome to another storytime video. For tonight's little reading session, I thought I would take a peek at a book that I really love. This is actually one of my favourite books on Doctor Who, which I am a massive fan of. You may or may not know, but Doctor Who is a series that means the absolute world to me. And seeing as I recently just got back into the show, I figured, you know what, we'll take a look at one of my favourite Doctor Who books, because I had the audio CD of this read by the awesome David Tennant. I really want to meet the guy someday. He's amazing. but enough fanboying, because today we're going to be reading a little snippet of Doctor Who, The Stone Rose by Jacqueline Rayner. So, let's not waste any time and get straight in. Rose carefully dropped £3 coins into the large collecting box at the entrance to the British Museum. Her mum tutted, "What do you want to go and do that for? You don't have to pay." "It's a donation," Rose pointed out. "They suggest you make one." Jackie raised disbelieving eyes towards the huge domed ceiling. "That's only for people who haven't been dragged here against their wills on a Sunday morning." Rose laughed and exchanged a look with Mickey. "You didn't have to come, Mum." Jackie tossed back her long blonde hair. "You think I was going to stay behind?" "It's a surprise," Mickey said. "Come and see," Mickey said. "You'll never believe it. Mind you, things I've seen, can't imagine what I'm not going to believe, but..." "You're right," Rose interrupted. "I didn't really expect you to stay behind. Come on, let's go on with it then." As Mickey moved off, Rose looked around for the fourth member of their party, but the Doctor had already vanished into one of the galleries. Shrugging, she walked off anyway, following Mickey's lead. Mickey had been really excited to see her this time, even more than usual, because he had a surprise for her. A huge surprise. An unbelievable surprise. And they were all on their way to see it. They passed the marble lion that gazed on the museum's great court with hollow, sorrowful eyes. "He looks so sad," Rose said. "You'd be miserable if you'd been stuck in a museum for..." Jackie bent down to read the little plaque beneath the statue. "Nearly 2,500 years. Rose didn't point out that the museum hadn't been around for anywhere near that long, because she knew her mum knew it anyway, but she understood what Jackie meant. She had a sudden wave of illogical pity for the carved creature, frozen forever due to a sculptor's whim over 2 millennia ago. Jackie was still looking at the lion. 2,500 years, she said again. "That's even older than him." Him, Rose knew, was the Doctor. "Hey, why doesn't he ever get wrinkles? I mean, however many 100 years, even with the new body, got to do with something with the skin? Free radicals and all that. I bet we're not the only planet with pollution. Can you find out what he uses? Make a fortune, he could." "This is the Doctor we're talking about, not Dad." Rose rolled her eyes. "He's no salesman." Mickey was beckoning them, and they left the statue and headed on. There was the Doctor in the Egyptian gallery, examining the Rosetta Stone. "It was a right pain when they found this," he said, giving a little wave as they passed. "There I was, just about to launch my English hieroglyphic dictionary when along came Napoleon's soldiers and the bottom falls out the market." "There, not a salesman," Rose said. "Told you." She waved back, and then they headed down a flight of stairs and round a corner, Mickey never hesitating, as if he knew the way by heart. They passed rows of carved Roman heads, hundreds of sightless eyes watching their progress. Then there were some sarcophagi and a giant stone foot that seemed almost too comedic to be in such a serious place as a museum. Then they came to a row of statues, sculpted human forms, some headless, some armless, but all possessed of a shining white dignity, despite their misfortunes. Mickey stopped. "There you are," he said. He was grinning, a dog who just fetched her a stick and was waiting for a grateful response. Rose looked at the statue in front of her, a marble priestess with a veil. It was lovely, but not all that exciting. Then Jackie gasped. "Oh my God, I don't believe it." Rose transferred her gaze to the next sculpture along, and she gasped too. It was a perfect stone replica of herself, and according to its sign, it was nearly 2,000 years old. Once Rose had recovered from the initial shock of finding a statue of herself in the British Museum, She got quite excited. That's brilliant, she said. Do you realise what this means? We must be off to 2nd century Rome. How brilliant is that? Blimey, said a voice from behind. Reminds me of a girl I once knew. Wonder whatever happened to her. The doctor had caught up with them, and he gave Rose a smile that could probably melt even a marble statue. She grinned at him. Jackie was reading the sign under the sculpture. Here it says it's a statue of the goddess Fortuna, she said. Don't tell me I've given birth to a god. Howard will never believe it. Fortuna, Roman goddess of good luck, the doctor said, betrayed with a cornucopia. Says here it's a horn of plenty, said Jackie. The doctor looked amused. The rose figure was indeed cradling a cornucopia, overflowing with stone, fruit and flowers in the crook of one arm. The other arm was no longer whole, a wrist stump gesturing redundantly at the group gathered round it. Rose held up her own 2 hands. I hope that wasn't done from life, she said. Tell you what, though, said Jackie, she's wearing your earrings. Rose took one off to compare. It was a flat silver disc with a spiral pattern radiating out from a tiny flower in the centre. She held it up at the statue's ear. Identical, even down to the flower. That's incredible, she said. It's so detailed. She slipped the real earring into the pocket of her denim jacket and grinned. Looks like I've got a future ahead of me as an artist model. I've always fancied that. Mickey frowned. Well, my mate Vic asked you to pose for him. You said no. Rose said, yeah, but lying on a sheepskin rug in my undies while your mate Vic takes photos isn't quite the same as posing as a goddess for some ancient Roman. The doctor had put on his glasses and was examining the statue's remaining hand. He said. What's up? Rose asked. Statue's wearing your ring too. Rose looked down at the ring in her hand. If she's wearing my earrings, why not? The doctor frowned. They often made the torso separately, mass-produced them, then just stuck on a head. Obviously the sculptor was so enamoured of your figure that you got to be the model for the whole thing. And is that so hard to understand? Asked Rose, raising an eyebrow. The doctor swung round and gave her a disarming grin. I'm sure it isn't. Rose found it quite hard to tear herself away from her stone double, but as the doctor pointed out, if she stayed there looking at it forever, then it would never get made, and they'd all be swallowed up in a terrible paradox. So she let herself be led away, past the giant foot. Ah, my fault, the doctor commented. The last remains of the Ogre of High 4-3, silicon-based life form. I defeated it back in, must be AD 200 or something. There was me, take that, you evil ogre. And there was a, ha, you'll never defeat me. And there was me, don't be so sure about that. It says it's from a colossal acrolithic statue, Mickey pointed out hurriedly. Well, they would say that, said the doctor, past the sarcophagi, past the rows of the stone heads, their gazes now seeming to signify kinship to Rose. They lost the doctor in the Egyptian section again, and Jackie went off to see if she could find a postcard of her stone daughter. Rose and Mickey stood together in the entrance, waiting. So, how'd you find out about it? Asked Rose after a few moments' silence. Not your usual haunt, is it? Mickey seemed embarrassed, looking down at the floor. She opened her eyes wide. What? Can't be that bad, can it? You've not been robbing it or something? Or have you been seeing one of the girls in the gift shop and you don't want to tell me about it? He frowned now, but still looked sheepish. Come on, tell me, she said. Mickey put back his shoulders, attempting a bit of bravado. Well, I've been doing this volunteer stuff, kids and that. Rose laughed delightedly. But that's brilliant. He shrugged, embarrassed again. Well, there's you off doing good all around the universe. I just thought I'd do a bit at home, that's all. The doctor was approaching them now. Don't tell him, Mickey hissed. Rose sighed, exasperated. Yeah, 'cause being a nice person's so uncool, isn't it? But she couldn't help reaching up, giving Mickey a quick peck on the cheek. You old softy. Jackie joined them, her postcard hunt having proved unsuccessful, and the 4 of them made their way out into the sunshine. Well, bye for now, take care, don't do anything I wouldn't, said the doctor as they reached the bottom of the museum's wide stone steps, holding a hand out to Mickey. What, you off already? Barely give me time to say hello to my only daughter before you're dragging her away again, complained Jackie, hands on hips. We'd love to stay, said the doctor, insincerely, putting a hand on Rose's shoulder. Love to, love to, but I'm afraid we have a date to keep. We have? Said Rose. Would have thought that was obvious, said the doctor. You and me are off to ancient Rome. Hang on, Jackie called after them. I've seen that Rome on the telly. You just watch yourself, my girl, the things they get up to. Rose laughed. Keep your toga on, Mum. I can look after myself. Rose stumbled into the control room as the TARDIS lurched to one side. The Doctor was dashing round the giant bronze mushroom in the centre, pushing a button here, pulling a lever there, doing something energetic with a pump somewhere else. She took a hesitant step forward as the time machine seemed to settle down. But it must have been waiting for that, because the instant she moved, it lurched the other way. The bed sheet had been draped over her shoulder, fell to the floor, but at least broke her fall as the next TARDIS tremor came. We'll be able to find somewhere to stay, the Doctor said, looking down at her from his still upright but fairly precarious position. No need to bring your own bed in. It's for wearing, not sleeping, said Rose. She sighed. I went to a toga party once, but I can't remember how to tie this thing around me. The Doctor grinned. Nice girls don't wear togas, he told her. They don't? No, and even if they did, they probably wouldn't have one with Winnie the Pooh on. Rose looked more closely at the sheet. In one corner, Winnie the Pooh sat eating honey, Piglet by his side. I didn't notice. But nice sheet you keep, you know, if any toddlers happen to come on board. So what should I wear then, O Roman god of fashion? He waved a hand. Oh, there'll be something back there. Look under R for Rome or A for ancient. He waved a hand. Oh, there'll be something back. I already read that back. And what about you? She asked. C for conspicuous? The Doctor was dressed in a resolutely 21st century suit with blue shirt and plimsolls, not the sort of thing that would blend in several millennia ago. I'll find something, he said, leaning over to twist a dial. The TARDIS spun too as Rose tripped towards the doorway, dragging the sheet behind her. It'd be a lot easier if you fixed some stabilizers to this thing, she called back. Sailors keep their feet through worse than this, he retorted happily, performing a few steps of a hornpipe to prove his own point. Rose groaned. Yeah, well, I couldn't have to with a lot of rum myself. She staggered off again. The TARDIS finally landed. Rose was now wearing an ankle-length dress in pale blue, clashing slightly with the greenness of her still nauseous face, with a dark blue shawl draped over her head, hiding hair that was now elaborately curled and scraped off her face. The Doctor wore a plain white tunic that ended at the knees, his sonic screwdriver stuck absurdly in his belt. Let's hope we are in ancient Rome, said Rose. You'll get lynched if you hang around the estate dressed like that. I'm sure you'd rescue me, said the Doctor. He opened the doors and they stepped out. That first step into an alien world or time never lost its excitement, however many times they did it. They were in a town or city, tenement blocks to either side of them. The sky was blue, but the colder sort of blue that said spring or early autumn. The Doctor peered up at the skyline. Aha! See that? He indicated an enormous pillar with the figure of a man on top, just visible above the roofs. Trajan's column. Definitely Rome. Then, unless your estate's gone majorly up in the world. Ugh, it stinks like the estate, said Rose, wrinkling her nose. She took a step forward and grimaced as her sandals splashed into a deep puddle. Look at these streets, they're flooded. Is this Rome or Venice? The Doctor looked down at her feet and raised an eyebrow. Oh, that explains the stink anyway. Rose frowned. What are you... And then she realised. I thought the Romans invented sewers and drains and stuff. Pretty much, the Doctor told her. But I don't think we've landed in the nicest part of town. I say we haven't, exclaimed Rose as a cry suddenly rang out from a nearby street. Both of them immediately began running towards the sound. 3 young men were crowded round an elderly bearded man with grey hair. He lay on the ground, clearly winded, staring up in fear at the dagger that was being waved in his face. Oi! Yelled Rose. Leave him alone. The men didn't even turn to look at her. Help! Croaked the old man. Please help me. Just hand over your cash, Grandad. You do what we say and everything will be fine, said the man with the dagger. Excuse me, gentlemen, began the Doctor, confidently striding forwards. This time they turned to look, and Rose took advantage of the distraction. There was a pile of clay jars in the doorway next to her. She soon found herself hurtling towards the head of the dagger-wielding mugger. The Doctor stepped in and relieved the dazed man of his weapon, as more jars connected with his 2 companions. Soon all 3 were racing off down the street, shards of pottery clinging to their hair and clothes. Ha! Rose called after them, as the Doctor helped the old man to his feet. He seemed a bit shaken. Well, that was hardly surprising. Thank you so much, he said weakly. Gnaeus Fabius Gracilis at your service. Further introductions were put on hold as a nearby door slammed open. An angry-looking red-faced man glared down at the depleted pile of pottery at his feet. "Here, what have you done to my amphorae?" It was them, Rose said mendaciously, pointing after the three muggers. The man started yelling after them, yelling, "Oi, oi, oi!" As the doctor and Rose beat a hasty retreat in the opposite direction, carrying Gracilis behind them. "You alright?" Rose asked him as they reached a safe distance and came to a stop. "Did those blokes nick anything?" The man shook his head, but the effort seemed to make him lose his balance. The doctor stepped in and caught him. "Whoops, steady there. Don't think you're alright, are you? Are you hurt?" No, said Gracilis. "Just the worry, you know, and I must confess I feel slightly dizzy." The doctor frowned. "Really? Can you remember what day it is?" "I'm not as weak as all that," said the man. "It is the Ides of March." Rose nearly choked. "You're joking." Gracilis looked startled. "Am I then wrong? Am I suffering from fever of the brain?" The doctor frowned at Rose but gave Gracilis a great big reassuring smile. No, quite right. I'm assuming you know what year it is as well, though." "The year?" the man said incredulously. "Of course I do. Really, sir, I appreciate your concern, of course your brave intervention, but I assure you I am fine. There is no need for this." "Absolutely, you're fine," said the doctor, slapping Gracilis on the back and grimacing at Rose. He mouthed, "Worth a try," and then, "I'll work it out later to her." "Oh, clean bit of health on the memory front. Excellent. But tell me, when did you last have anything to eat?" Gracilis looked thoughtful. "Do you know? I have no idea. Yesterday, perhaps, or possibly the day before." "Then before you do anything else, a bite to eat and a sit-downer on the menu. Come on." "But hadn't we better beware," said Rose happily, "of her food poisoning?" The doctor frowned again. "All right, let's get something to eat," she said. "Could we find a nicer bit of town, though?" But Gracilis was shaking his head again. No, there's no time. I must continue my search." The doctor was gentle but firm, almost as if he was a real doctor. "Food and rest. You'll be no good to anyone until you've had those. And then, well, Rose and I are fond of a great search, aren't we, Rose?" "Love 'em," said Rose. "So, you tell us what we're looking for, and we'll look for it with you. Deal?" "Oh," said Gracilis, but the doctor had already grabbed his hand and shaken it. "Deal." So let's just see where we've left off there. Number 21. So I think that'll be a good wee place to call it a day. I adore this story. I love the whole premise of it right off the bat, and especially given that the audiobook, I actually had an audiobook which was read by David Tennant himself, and fast became one of my favourite things to listen to. Before I even knew what ASMR was, I would listen to David just reading the story. Granted, it was an abridged version, so some stuff that I remembered being in the book has been trimmed, but I still think it's absolutely terrific and well worth a read. So let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this reading video, and if you would like to see me do more, or if you'd like to see me continue this book in particular. Let me know in the comments below, leave a like, and feel free to subscribe. Everyone's welcome in the Autobot army.